very shortly we'll be talking to former National Party Minister of Finance, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Tim Groser, and asking him. It was also actually, I didn't realise this, Tim wasn't just a former Minister of Foreign Affairs, but he was actually the Minister of Climate Change. I wonder if that was the first time that everybody... He was a former diplomat anyhow. He was brought into the National Party because of his expertise, particularly in diplomacy. In 2005, he was a list MP for 3.5 terms, really. And then I think they sent him off as an ambassador over somewhere. Well, he can tell us all himself in a minute. Welcome to the show, Tim. Tim, that's right, isn't it? You ended up as an ambassador somewhere.
Well, yeah, I've forgotten the name. I think it might be called the United States of America.
It's a small country, just off the coast of Canada somewhere, isn't it?
Somewhere off the 51st state, mate.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, that's the other issue, isn't it? Well, no, Greenland's going to be the top 51st state, isn't it?
Oh, no, that's number... Well, I mean, I don't know whether Justin will want to get in before Greenland, so one will be 51 and one 52. So, g'day, Michael. Let me just quickly make couple of tiny corrections. So,
you go.
I've been New Zealand's chief trade negotiator years before I crossed across to the dark side, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm a technocrat, really, turned politician when I got this evil invitation to go into the National Party and go into politics, right? And then I went from being ambassador in Geneva to the WTO into politics, became not Minister of Foreign Affairs, although I held Associate Minister of Foreign Affairs portfolio. I became Minister of Climate Change International. Yep. I later became Climate Change overall, but only for a short period at the end of my stint. But I was Minister of Trade for 7 years. So that's, and then I went off to Washington as ambassador, and I think this might be of some interest to your listeners. So I've just come back from literally 4 days ago from 10 days at the invitation of some Trump insiders that I got very close to when I was ambassador in the United States. And it's just fascinating watching the transition from what I call Trump 101 to Trump 201. So there we are. That sets the stage.
It sure does.
Talk about?
Yeah, well, let's go
Trade,
there. Let's talk about Trump 201 rather than Trump 101. There's a suggestion that he knows what he is doing and he's going to do it straight away. And there was a plan and it's just been put in and the Democrats have been swept away from everywhere. What's your impression?
First of all, let's have a brief... I don't know how much time you've got. I mean...
We've got until 1 o'clock.
Shoot me before yeah. So this was an extraordinary comeback for President Trump, but it was not a landslide. Even though they got the trifecta, they got the presidency, they got the House, they got the Senate. But crucially, the margin of the popular vote that he got was the lowest for 20 years over the opponent. People don't talk about that. The House is on a freaking knife edge in a parliament, i.e. the House of Representatives, of 454 members who don't get whipped in the classical British parliamentary system that you and I are used to. They've got a majority of 3 to 5, depending on how you count it, in a parliament of 454. It'll be a nightmare for their speaker getting votes through. So, and in 2 years' time, there's another election. So all the House goes up for election again. And before we start on the thing, let's get this clear. It was an extraordinary political comeback, but it was not a landslide victory. Okay?
No, I accept that. No. But for all intents and purposes, he's taking it, I'm in charge, and we've got a plan. And he seems to have had that plan long worked out before he got to Washington this time.
So I've made the point in some comments I made yesterday to the media and elsewhere that I don't think he as a person has changed fundamentally, right? Because who would at the age of 80? But he is far wiser. He's gone through the most extraordinary lawfare campaign against him. He has triumphed, and he is more determined than ever than he was in his first presidency. And I also think the assassination is a huge issue. As I've said to a few people, you may laugh when he says, I believe I've saved for a purpose. But it's not a joke because it matters not what you think, but what he thinks. And we are up against a far more ruthless version of Trump, not because he's fundamentally changed, but for those two reasons, plus, Michael, a couple of other things that augment the force of that conclusion. The ecosystem around him is no longer just the guys with the crazy baseball hats on, back to front, the MAGA screaming people. It's a whole lot of sophisticated people, many of whom I met when I was going from one Trump networking event to another, as a private citizen, not representing the government at all. Okay, and then the other third thing is, you may remember a very perceptive and famous comment made about Trump when he first appeared on the scene. They said, I can't remember the clever person who thought of this. They said his supporters take him seriously, but not literally. His detractors take him literally, but not seriously. Now, let me tell you this. You can file that away because everybody is taking him seriously. You think about that pilgrimage by tech and other titans, major global politicians, down to Mar-a-Lago to kiss his butt. Everybody knows he is serious. So this is a very different Trump in terms of effectiveness.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I think those observations are absolutely opposite. Listen, the other thing, though, is let's go very quickly. We'll come to trade in a second, Tim, but Trump's withdrawn, as you know, the United States. He said he was going to do it. There's no surprise there, but he's withdrawn the United States from the Paris Agreement. I think the United States is the second largest carbon emitter in the world after China. You'll know better than I.
Yes, they are. They're 14%. China's 30%, so they're about slightly less than half China.
Okay. What practical effect for the next 4 years, and certainly as it impacts upon New Zealand and its climate change policy, will this have?
Well, this is a very large question and of extreme importance, Michael. First of all, let's just backtrack and ask, well, so what has the United States been doing in the last 15, 20 years on climate change? Well, what they've been doing is extraordinary. They have radically not just decoupled the growth of emissions from the growth of American GDP, but they actually declined by about a third while GDP has increased. Now, is this because of terrific international climate change agreements? Nope. It's got essentially nothing to do with climate change agreements because the United States never joined the Kyoto Protocol. It was thrown out of the US Senate by a vote of 95-0 in 1997. So bad did they think the Kyoto Protocol was as an international climate change agreement. Now, yes, the previous administration, I had a great deal to do as a facilitator on this. I don't want to go through the negotiating history, but on another occasion. And they joined the Paris Agreement, and then Trump withdrew, but for complicated procedural reasons didn't actually withdraw. But that's only been going for the last 3 years. So what has happened? Why have they radically decoupled their growth in emissions from their growth in GDP, which has sailed on at a CAGR, compound average growth rate, of around 2 to 3% over the last 15 years? It's about the transition from two forms of fossil fuel, oil and coal, to natural gas. 80% of US emissions come from energy. The transformation into natural gas has massively reduced US emissions. Now, of course, the ideologues, I should, by the way, I'll make a very important statement because people can misinterpret what I'm saying. But there'll be people listening to your show, Michael, who are, I won't use the term deniers, but think this is all bullshit and it's all natural weather and so on. I'm not one of them. I think climate change is real. I think we've actually got to get on top of this problem. It's just that I don't think it's the only problem that we have to confront in the transition. So I just want to put that on the table. Otherwise, people could think I'm mounting a sophisticated attack on action on climate change. Hell no. We've got to do stuff on climate change. Now, the issue on natural gas, which is an issue in this country, is do you think we need to transition to carbon neutrality or net zero? Or do you think just you can write by fiat a political decision and then we're all going to happily get to climate change heaven? Well, I know what the answer to that is, and anyone who reflected for a single moment on the fact we live in a democracy knows that that we need a transitional period. And natural gas has played its role in the United States, and it's been helpful, but it's not the very long-term solution.